All right, welcome back. So at this point, you've gone through the brainstorming video. And in this video, Kevin and I are going to kind of like further discuss a few of the ideas that we went over. I picked up a little Sasquatch hat. I don't know if you noticed that, just honoring
Nice
the fact
stuff.
that these kind of almost goofy things are interesting enough to for me to jump on. And so we're going to talk about, we're going to come to a conclusion on what are we going to build here for you guys to follow along. And we have not had this discussion. Kevin and I haven't really talked about any specifics since the last video on purpose to really allow you to have that fly on the wall moment with us here. So we're not only going to kind of come to a decision, we're also going to rough out the strategy that we're going to follow. And every roughed out strategy is just that. It's enough to get us going into motion, and we will absolutely be adjusting as we move forward. The goal is just take that next step. With that all said, how are you today, Kevin?
Good, man. How about you?
I'm doing great. I'm excited about this. So do you want to start with what you're thinking? I might know what you're thinking because you were pretty excited at the end of the last call, but what have your thoughts been since we last talked?
Well, I will say one of the things that we haven't talked about, and I'm not trying to introduce a new idea here as we're about to do this work,
Oh,
but
please do.
uh, one of the things that as you've done this more, that you'll start to think about is you'll be a little less. Well, I won't say less. In addition to being product focused in your mind, you will become market focused and start to realize the person and think about the person that is behind the buying behavior that you're looking to create. And so the reason I say that is that in the last call, we talked about the conspiracy theory idea and newsletter, shirts, hats, all that sort of stuff was the thing that I got excited about. And the reason that I immediately got excited about that is because I understand the psychology of that market and that buyer. And that is one of those hyper buyer, radical buyer markets, which are very powerful to be involved in as a seller. And in many cases, those markets are ones that get mined by the big companies. Now, many times those companies start out as small companies, and because they're mining in a rabid hyper buyer market, they become big companies. Like, for instance, the example that everybody always gives is golf, right? Well, yes, golfers have traditionally been hyper buyers and they're rabid and all this sort of stuff. I'd say it's on the wane today. But through the 70s, 80s, 90s in particular, it was a fantastic market to be selling to. But what's happened is, the big boys have sort of consolidated around each other, and they've cornered the market on the manufacturing side of things as far as golf clubs and
the media, right? So Revolution Golf was kind of an internet startup that grew, did really well, and it got bought out by CBS, some huge
Golf
major
Channel.
media, the Golf
Yeah.
Channel, right? So it
Yeah,
got
I
bought out,
know
which
that
is
story very well. I know Justin.
yep.
So
And I think we also see that in some senses in the internet marketing space, right? There's a few gurus who have absolutely risen to the top of attention share. And there's some come ups trying, but boy, it's really difficult to get a funnel software off the ground into mass consciousness because of how strongly rooted, and they don't even have a great moat. It's just the moat is maybe the affiliates, but it's that kind of idea. How much of this in your thought process is about the identity of the people? Like, to me, the conspiracy theory world, like, these people want to identify as like, I don't buy into that bullshit. And they almost want to display that
that's
they
right.
don't buy into the BS. And
That's
I think
right.
that's one of the things that makes them a hyperactive buyer. And we are really deep psychological, but you mentioned the curse of knowledge, or the blessings of knowledge, we could even say. But having done this over and over and over, being able to be like, okay, that's an interesting idea, but the persona who would buy that, they would probably want to buy all of the things in that space, which means, as far as from product to business, right? Because a product does not a business make, but when you get enough products together and a brand around it, it leads. So you're able to see that, like, ooh, there's potentially a pathway here. Now, for folks listening to this and like, oh, I just thought soap would work. Like, A, Dr. Squatch is selling millions of dollars of soap, but B, we can banter about this, right? Like, you can ask our coaches about this in the group. That's a part of what the support network is. And getting into action, building something, going through the full kind of cycle to be a merchant, to become an entrepreneur, to entrepreneur. Like, I want to make that a verb. How do we make that? But like, to do the work of actually creating value in the life of another person, where they pull out their credit card and they buy from you. That's all that matters in the beginning. And when you do that enough times in enough places, you start to see the pattern, and you start to see the world the way that Kevin and I are talking about. Can you, I totally derailed you, and I apologize about that, but I would like you to finish what you're saying.
Well, the point I'm making is, and to your initial point there, yes, I think that the self-identification in that niche is strong. I think that the big boys are cornering the market on the left versus right stuff, right? And there's a lot out there on that. That's the big media companies, and even the all the way down the chain on that. But I think that the interesting part about the conspiracy theory type market is that it's, I would say, possibly underserved, considering how rabid these people are about the stuff, which is where you find a real opportunity, I think. When you find a hyper buyer rabid market that's being underserved, that's why I got excited, because I was like, oh, wait a minute, I can't think of a major apparel brand that's selling, the aliens are out there t-shirts.
They walk among us.
That's right. I mean, that's not a thing. And there's plenty of people that would wear that shirt and believe that. And, it's no more fringe than Dungeons and Dragons is, right? And yet there's plenty of apparel for those kind of things, right?
And some could say less fringe, because like the Pentagon's even coming out and saying like, oh yeah, by the way, it's real. Like, and this has all been like papered over by COVID stuff and fear tactics on. There's a lot of distraction in the media, but literally they've come out and been like, yeah, we pretty much know that there's life out there. We just don't know about it, but we don't make it.
There's a comedian called Nate Bargatze, who is a pretty funny sort of deadpan comedian from Tennessee, who has a Netflix special right now. And he was talking about 2020, and he's, I guess, kind of an introvert. And he's like, it's the best year ever. He goes, but he goes, you want to know how crazy 2020 is? There's aliens. He goes, and nobody cares. Yep. He goes, I went up to my wife and I was like, hey baby, there's aliens. She goes, yeah, well, okay, whatever. Yep. He goes, there's aliens and nobody cares. Right. They finally said yes. So it's funny, that is a thing. So
what was his name?
Nate Bargatze, Bargatze, I think.
All right.
He's a really funny guy. But what's interesting about the whole thing to me is, it takes a certain kind of company to me, this is sort of like a more mainstream version of this that is being well served, is the Soldier of Fortune, Prepper, which is sort of a kissing cousin to the conspiracy theory market, I would say. Or maybe they are the market, and those guys have just figured out the best way to monetize it is selling them food.
Right. And free knives from Ryan Dice's free plus shipping funnels. Right. So then to contrast this, I feel personally one of the best ideas to me is the crypto world. But I think you nailed something and I still am going to discuss out the whole idea, but I think what hinges on here is the underserved side of things. And there's so much content about crypto. There's so many people who've caught the bug. flat out have caught the bug in whether it was the 2017 cycle, the 2014 cycle. Everybody dates when, I bought my first ones back, so I don't think I would consider it an underserved audience. Now, with that said, there's a large barrier to entrance on the like how to and what the is this side of things. Okay. So we were kind of joking about the birds, like birds aren't real. They're all drones, they're all cameras thing. That's a kind of an idea. You hear it. I just explained it. You get it. Whether you believe it or not doesn't matter. Like the idea is digestible in a very simple way. The idea of blockchain technology, sound money, hard money, pristine collateral, distributed ledgers, like these things that are what make crypto very, very unique and very much a technological revolution that we're living through. They're really freaking complex, and for the viewers, like you get this, right? Like we're kind of bantering about things that we get, but for the viewers, the fact that it's technically complex means there's a need for education. And I'm an educator. If you've ever seen my YouTube channel, like that's all I do. Like I don't entertain, like I got my fancy gray wall back, right? Like there's nothing going on other than my dual Sasquatches going on at the moment. But really, it means that there's a gap in education. And if I believe, which I do, that billions of people are going to onboard into a digital, decentralized currency type system, that means that from where it is today with, I don't know, 200 million wallets or whatever it is to 5xing the number of wallets, education is what gets people there. And what is education? It's content. And what am I kind of innately good at? Just explaining shit on video. Like it's natural for me. So that's why I lean towards that. But there's other people who are full-time in the space. They have been full-time in the space. They have brands in the space. They've been committed to the space a lot longer than I have. And they can explain it better than I can because I'm still like almost mildly overwhelmed. The path I've seen is literally like charts on mugs, t-shirts, playing that same kind of starting game to really kind of dial in the memes and the directions and the angles that work. Then from there, I could see I'm assuming you're familiar with Drudge Report.
Oh yeah.
As a website. So I think a website that just had a bunch of links to interesting, helpful content, right? Not necessarily being the content creator in the first few phases, but actually like consolidating content. There's another one called 321gold.com. And it's like, you look at the website, it's like 1995, just puked all over this website.
Right.
And so you can aggregate ideas. And then from there, I could advertise my shirts. I could also have a course. And then with a course, the upsell from a course would be a newsletter where I could do like, I'm going to invest $1,000 a month. And I'll tell you every month in a new paid newsletter, pay 15, 20 bucks a month. And I'll tell you exactly what I buy in what percentages. And if you want to do more, you could just 10X it. You could do 10 grand a month. If you want to do less, you could do 100 bucks a month. But I'm going to essentially take a separate account, start from zero, call it like the catch up or the catch up account. And I'd put, some percentage and I would change it every month. And then that would be my ongoing. So in theory, I can see a path from mugs and shirts to organic content that could potentially build brand to a course that could be kind of a front end sale to an ongoing membership type thing. Now,
you want me to shoot holes as I see
yes. And I think there's a lot of freaking work in there. That's the first hole is I have two businesses, right? I have my business, my wife's business. You and I are collabing on this. So I technically have like three. So literally the amount of energy to get there. But I would love for you to shoot holes in that because that's just been stewing.
One of the holes is that crypto is against the terms of service on YouTube and Facebook. So
which is why I've been scheming up. It's like, what is my path to getting organic traffic? Because technically I would have to build that component, which means for everyone listening. So what Kevin's saying is you are going to have to dig with a shovel until you hit oil. And that hole might be 40 feet deep before you hit oil. And how long is it going to take you with a shovel to dig a 40-foot hole to find oil versus the other approach, which is literally like offer, ad, does it convert? Offer, ad, does it convert? Offer, ad,
Right.
does it convert? You just kind of keep tweaking that until you find the things that do, which is kind of the equivalent of like bury a piece of dynamite, light it. Do we have oil pouring out yet? No. Go bury another piece of dynamite over here, light it. Do we have oil? No. And on and on. So big structural changes is what we're talking about. And it's the one thing I've been thinking of.
That's always a thing for me is how fast can I test it? Like how fast can I prospect or wildcat for the oil? Because the difficult thing is if you're not positive that you have oil, which I think with crypto it's pretty positive that there is oil, but I think that you have to be someone like yourself who's willing to do that work and put up 700 videos to build the audience that's going to buy and build that revenue for you ongoing. The second hole that I see is
as he racks his shotgun again.
That's right. Well, this is just in your back end. I think a course that teaches the basics of crypto is a viable front end or core offer for sure, like how to set up a wallet. I do think that the masses are going to come to this and they're going to need to have the basics. But I think that any sort of ongoing subscription where you're talking about the thing is about what you're doing in the market, or having them in there talking about what they're doing in the markets. I think that there's a real gray area around people that are actually giving financial advice right now.
Yes. 100%.
And I think that there is going to be a
crackdown.
I think that there's so much with the crypto markets that is outside of the realm of what is regulated at this point, that when they do start regulating, then what mistakes are they going to make? And that generally they come in with a broadsword and hit hard, and then they eventually back it up and figure it out. But I feel like there's a lot of people that are making money that are probably crossing the line as far as giving financial advice, even though they say, you can say
the disclaimer goes on the front that you pre-roll the disclaimer, but still, like there's so many people operating in the gray area that like the best current operation status is the gray area. And so to kind of like give another idea from to the viewer, to explain this in another way, is like, what is the potential of your future, of your efforts today? Because all this stuff takes effort, right? To build this stuff out. What is the potential of that effort getting literally shut down to zero because of something you can't control? And Kevin's saying there's a risk there. Okay. So it's like, okay, Miles, you dedicate yourself to this. I still think it can be done because what I would be showing is what I'm buying. And I'm like, I'm not saying you should buy this. I am just showing you what I'm doing in my personal fund. That for me, there's my gray area and I'm happy with it. But what Kevin's saying is when that ban hammer comes down, there's going to be a lot of collateral damage, and there's going to be people who were on the clean white hat side of the gray area that might get caught by that ban hammer in that scenario. And you just, as Frank Kern's known, Russell Brunson got in trouble with the government at one point. Like Kern got in trouble, like there's a lot of people, a lot of the forefathers of our industry and people we've observed. You just never want that phone call. You never want to go down that, right? Like we pay our taxes, we do things legit above board on purpose because it just makes life guaranteed to not have bars involved at any point in time. And I'm talking
about and ultimately the other thing is that the most aggressive of all of the regulatory bodies out there is the SEC. When it comes to like, when I told the story about watching the early crypto documentary, the guys who went to jail, right? They went to jail. They were tried in New York State, in New York City. Like the people that are afraid the most right now are banks and financial institutions of this stuff. And so they are the ones that are going to come in and try to really, set precedents in the law. because those precedents are how all future cases are judged.
Exactly.
And they're going to come in, I think, hard and fast. And
Yep.
so what generally happens, the reason I say all this is not to say that Miles giving his portfolio or any of those things would actually, that you might end up in jail. But what happens when they come in hard and fast like this is, okay, YouTube says any crypto channel is against terms of service. And so all the crypto channels get shut down, whether you're being good or bad. Like, I don't know that you would ever do anything that would get you on that line. Although I do know guys, I know a guy right now who is giving people specific advice about their portfolios, and he's making a lot of money. That is financial advice. I mean, he is crossing the line and doesn't even know it. And I've told him, hey, listen, you need to like get legal advice about this. But the long and short of it is that if you're making a course on like how to set up a wallet or something like that, I think that's a lot different than when you start talking about specific cryptos and things like that.
Right. Totally.
The only third hole I see is for the merch. I think crypto is a lot more protected and trademarked and copyrighted than, you know, the birds or what, you know what I mean? That's just that, like I think was it me and you that were talking the other day, and HODL is trademarked, you know?
We looked at that on the USPTO for sure. And there's some of them are open sourced, which means they've open sourced their pieces, but other ones aren't. And yeah, there's a lot of little gray areas, and it being so new, I do think it's able to be ruled out. I still do believe that anyone watching who's infatuated with that, it could work. It just takes a little bit more. Somebody might just be already like, my life is going in this direction anyways, but it does take a little bit more finesse, if you will, and maybe potentially finding a great legal person on your side to work with on Upwork type thing.
Yeah, and again, I'm not against crypto as a potential oil well. I think that there are things there, but it's like anything, there's always a give and take, right? And there's always this tug of war of what you're looking at, and it's smart to look at all the sides of it when you're going in to start, because that's how you figure out, okay, this is what I'm in for, and you make those decisions based off that. And as long as you're cool with it, then hey, man, have at it.
Totally. And if I didn't have so much going on, I think I would be much more willing to draw my line in the same, just to be committed to it, because it is one of those things that is all consuming for people. And the byproduct of that consumption is like, I'm reading so much stuff, so I could put the best articles up, right? I spend so much time reading about investments at this point. Like I don't even have to write the content. So there's ways for me to take the byproduct of my personal interests and what I'm doing on my cell phone and tablet at night, reading, listening, watching podcasts, and I could lay it out. I want to actually show this website to people real quick, because
it's the fast moving current. Like, that's the thing. There's certain things where the water's just dead and you got to paddle. There's other things where the water's going in the other direction and you got to really paddle against the stream. And then there's some where it's like the current's going with you. And so you just got
to get in. Right. So here, this site is, like I said, 1996, vomited all over this website. I come to this website a lot, like this guy. So what he does is these are other people wrote, well, he actually wrote this one. But I would say 90% of the content are just links to other things. He has it broken up. So I could do, newbies, I could do DeFi, I could do NFT, I could break it up to the different stuff I find interesting, economy in the stock market. And then he sells. So what he sells is, these are all sponsored, all of his sponsors here. And so just for people, like I'm modeling something that like, although this is disturbingly ugly, this site gets massive amounts of traffic. He has still, like the old school websites do, a website counter, 450 million visits, 479 million visits to this website. So my wife's website, we've driven maybe, if I was to use the visits number, we're probably getting close to 100 million visits, and we're pretty freaking good at the game. And then Drudge Report, people may or may not know, it is one of the most visited websites in the world.
Oh,
and
yeah.
All is it's just a list of articles, right? They don't write any of their own content. It's just, I have my ad blocker on, so it blocks everything. It's just a list of headlines of things that people who want to follow. So it's kind of like there's some modeling going on in my idea.
Aggregators, yeah.
Total aggregators. A couple of other things I wanted to drop that I was asking my wife afterwards, obviously, things that we've purchased, gift boxes for nieces and nephews we purchased on Etsy, which someone took the time to put 3 or 4 things into a box. And then it becomes a gift box, and the service they provided us was like, oh, we get this thing for our nephew. Barnwood, I'm looking at literally like putting like wood on and people are literally selling like pallets of barnwood, reclaimed barnwood to do walls. I'm not going to do that. Plants. My wife has ordered, I would say, 100 or so permaculture plants. These are permaculture plants are plants that they're annuals or perennials. They come back every year, and they're vegetables. So edible perennials, not common to find at your local nursery. There's this whole world of people growing plants and then breaking the tubers or whatever it is, and then selling them on Etsy. And we've been getting just package after package after package of freaking plants for people who like to make plants, right? So it's and I just want to throw out a few more ideas because I've had like 50 new ideas of like since we talked, Kevin. I'm like, oh shit, we can do that too.
Well, along the lines of that, so we were thinking about buying our daughter a horse farm earlier, like 6 months ago, and
that sounds expensive.
Yeah, well, it's it's a long story, but I was looking online at farms and stuff, and I went down this rabbit hole, and there's all sorts of amazing to your point about these plants, there are people that are growing like little seedling type plants in their basement and taking those to the local grocery stores and farmers markets and things like that.
Restaurants, the microgreens.
Yeah. So it doesn't have to be like a digital online thing. Even it could be like just an oil well that you want to run in your own way, personally. Although I'm sure, and there are people who are making their full-time living, like 6-figure living, just growing these weird little things like wheatgrass or whatever. I don't know if wheatgrass is one of them, but that kind of thing. Very rare, organic herbs and things like that, and selling them. And
so at the Sedona, Arizona farmers market, he used to have a place in Sedona. The guy, he was from Cottonwood, which is the next town over. He rented industrial space. So he would not only sell there, he would use sunflowers and broccoli sprouts and all these fancy sprouts them on trays. He has racks of them with an LED light in a tray and an LED light in a tray.
That's what they
definitely make him 10 grand a month. And so he was selling to the super high-end restaurants, and he had because they want these beautiful little top. They just put 2 or 3 of them.
They were selling to the restaurants too on the thing. That's right.
To the high-end restaurants, because they want those fancy little sprouts that look perfect on top of everything. And he loved it. And there was another guy there who sold mushrooms. You can get these mushroom inoculation kits. You put them in these bags of essentially like sawdust, and then you just have to keep them in a climate-controlled room that's really sterile because you can't mold and you're growing a fungi. Do you know how much a pound of shiitake mushrooms goes for? Like
no idea.
$19-20 a pound for some of these high-end mushrooms, all the way up to $30 per pound for some of these really high-end mushrooms. And they dried some, so they would sell them fresh, and whatever they didn't sell fresh, they'd take home, dehydrate them, put it in bags, and then they'd sell them as dried. They literally get lighter and easier to transport and smaller as they dry them, and they didn't change the price at all. And they had a basement where they just did their thing. Mr. Money Mustache, who, are you familiar with him at all?
Yeah,
so he's got a huge blog. Yeah, so his wife.
What's that thing called? The FIRE movement.
The FIRE movement. Yep. Financial independence, retire early. So his wife was making those logs of soap that were sold on Etsy. So she would make like 3 logs per week or per day. She was making $300-400 a week, just making a few of these logs of soap, and she would sell them on Etsy. And so she was being the wholesale provider, and other people were buying them and slicing them and putting little wrappers on them and selling them at boutiques and things like that. And it's, there's 1,000,001 ideas around. Crystals is another thing I bought a ton of online and stuff. Any other ideas that stuck with you? Or are you pretty much, are we like, is it like, let's get this conspiracy theory game going?
No. I'm not. Like, here's the deal. Like I said, we don't have to do the conspiracy theory thing,
I
but
like it.
I'm sure that I'm going to do it.
I
Yeah,
literally am like, I'm multi-set. I didn't actually do this on purpose. Wifey made the mug. This
yeah.
is obviously my favorite mug. I live in the forest, by the way. I'm just surrounded by millions of acres of timberland. So I'm pretty sure I've actually heard Sasquatch in my life, and that's no joke. That's actually a very serious thing. So did my neighbor. It was, yeah. So,
I think it'd be
I
fun
think
to
it's brilliant.
start a conspiracy theory, like with the way things are these days, like the way the guys did the birds. I would love to
I'm
do one
so
with
in on that.
frogs.
So we got to test. And this is to think down that rabbit hole. Okay. So then if you wouldn't mind, Kevin,
Yeah.
how does this turn into a business that makes 10 grand a month? Right. So let's just totally roughly, like I did with the crypto, and I was like, oh, well, what do you see this path being like? And obviously, we'll adapt and adjust as we go, but I'm curious, like, okay, I get it. So mugs and hats, I'm already there with you on that, but where does this go digital? It doesn't need to by any means, but do you see a path like that?
So yeah, so I could see. So number one is this feels like an underserved yet giant niche that people are one off selling things, but
Yep.
no one is really serving it like that I know of. So the big question I always have is like, what's the tip of the spear? What's the thing that's the first purchase that we can get people to make, right? So um, I don't know which direction it goes, but to me, it feels like there being a uh, at some level, the idea in my mind is there's merchandise and things like that, but then there's also um, uh, I think a newsletter is a real component to it, and I think if you could do profitably a physical newsletter, it's even better. Like I have these physical newsletters and I did it with old typewriter font print
Yep.
and all this stuff, and it just felt good. Like, so I think that that's a thing. And then I think that it would be very easy to have like special events and workshops and things like that you sell to these people live or online, right? Like they don't have that. They don't have as much of that connection, because I can tell you, as someone who believes some of the conspiracy theories, you're the nutball. You're the one that's alone. You're alone all the time. So I can
Interesting.
see,
Community.
yeah, you're building and selling community, and whether you do it in a monthly fee, or if you just do events where people can come to it, or whatever it is, I think having a community would be a powerful thing.
Right, like Comic Con became such a thing, like Conspiracy
Correct.
Con.
Right.
The conspiracy of the month box. Here's your conspiracy.
Oh, dude, that would
Uh,
be awesome. And you
right,
build
like a
out the
goofy
whole
mug.
thing.
Yeah, like that could
Build
be a
out the whole
total.
thing. Have everything about Sasquatch in there.
Well, and that's kind of the idea of the conspiracy of the month type thing, right? You can
Yeah.
mix up from one thing, and it could have a newsletter that kind of explains what this one is, and where the roots of it came from, and it's like the uh, National Enquirer. I mean, like it's still one of the highest selling publications in the world. So anybody who's like listening to this, like, oh, I don't know, but like literally the National Enquirer is literally one of the highest volume selling publications in the world still to this very day. And
Mhm.
and if anything, like they're still selling physical stuff when newspapers can't. They haven't bridged the gap in our digital age at all. So there is something there. Um,
Well, like I was joking the other day, but like the movie Conspiracy Theory, each newsletter that he put out, he'd have like 5 different stories that he had researched of things that were happening in the news right then,
yep.
right? How hard would it be to have, you know, people submitting stories to you. And if you use their story, you pay them $100. And so the difficult thing about a newsletter is writing the newsletter.
Right. It's the content.
But these guys would love to be, like citizen journalists that get paid to have their story in the conspiracy letter.
Totally. I mean, the earthquake swarms in random parts of the country, the boom sounds, the lights that are showing up everywhere. I got a few stories. I love it. And I think you're right in the underserved world. Okay, so then to get really tactical about first step, okay, one other question, totally random at this point. Have you run Reddit ads before? Have you done any advertising on Reddit?
Not recently, but yes.
Okay. To me, I'm like, oh, that sounds pretty nifty. So like, and I'm curious if you think for early steps or next steps is like, come up with a couple of ideas for potential products, like hooks, like little snippets, little memes, if you will, like pop culture references that can go, and then literally go on like Fiverr or Upwork and hire 3 designers and give them all the same tasks, see who comes back with something that looks good, fire the other 2, and there you found your designer. And from there, it's literally design idea, design, throw it on Etsy, basic SEO, run some ads, and play, literally just loop that around until something rings the register on the regular. And then from there, consider owning the transaction and maybe selling it from a straight sales page, using your own shopping cart, running it with an ad to Reddit or wherever the ad goes. And then ultimately, then you're kind of taking the data from the platform that has people, increasing margins, owning the customer relationship, all of that, and boom, that's what potentially becomes scalable, building the customer list who would ultimately want to buy the newsletter, the box of the month club in the future. So the test bed is this little iteration cycle over on Etsy. And then when things really start to work, can it / does it scale on Reddit ads, Facebook ads, other types of ads? Is that?
Yeah. And I would say figuring out if we could possibly, if these lists are rentable or buyable.
Oh,
like there might be people that have lists like this.
And they probably don't know how to, sorry for interrupting, but they probably wouldn't have great ideas on how to monetize them, right? Like this isn't necessarily a, like, oh, I have an internet marketer list. How do I monetize this? Which like, they just buy everything. Like,
right. So, and if you could get said list somehow, then having that as a retargeting list on like this stuff isn't against terms of service, which is nice, right? Like there's nothing that stops you from advertising Bigfoot stuff on Facebook, right? So there's lots of potential ways to turn this into something cool.
Okay, I'm being brutally, so I'm on Nextmark, which is like, this is kind of an old school list rental place. Kevin, you're like, yeah, of course, I grew up, like, but for folks looking, so what we're looking at is these are people who rent lists. And before traffic was so easy to obtain through internet like it is today, this was like the place that direct response marketers went to. Obviously, there's a few of them, but literally list brokers is kind of the idea. So I'm just going to type in conspiracy. I'm just going to see if anything shows up at all.
Yeah.
And so what we're
used
looking
to go to the library and you would grab, there's a book called the SRDS.
Right. I've actually tried to get that and no one has that thing anymore. But like right here, conspiracy theorist investor list, like literally shows up on the top. The national campaign to defeat Hillary Clinton showed up. That is obviously for certain types of things. Wow, these conspiracy theorists openly contest social, economic, political happenings that most would never think into questions. Where did they come from? 90% male. So literally, okay, so for everybody watching, what I'm doing,
scroll down to that. Scroll down again.
The demographic information, right?
Look at average income.
Ooh, that's huge. So what I'm doing for folks who are watching, Kevin's like onto something, and I'm the new one to this idea. Okay, this is an idea that Kevin like instantly clicked with. So I'm now gathering data points based on other people's work, and it's freely here. 51-year-old men. That means, generally speaking, a 51-year-old man is going to have more net worth than a 19-year-old kid who's infatuated with Robinhood and crypto. I like that. Average income of $100,000. The same sort of a thing here. I'm also, as I started this whole thing off with, I was like, dude, we're two dudes, right? Like, we're going to look at the world through the lens of two dudes. Well, this is an audience of dudes. So the ability, the potential for us to connect with this audience and brainstorm ideas that are going to work with the audience is pretty high, because we are this freaking audience, right? I'm younger than this, but I'm also making more than this. And I have a higher, so on these types of things. So the data is multi-sourced using a variety of channels, using questionnaire surveys. Okay, so now what I want other people to look at on this is good-ish. When you find a list that is buyers, like magazine subscriptions, people who have bought something, that's a more valuable list. Okay, so this is potentially a compiled list, I would say, and that is going to be like maybe a lower value list, but in theory, they've done some way to scrub this. And what Kevin is saying, that we can go from this company here, we can, for email list, $75 per thousand. So if we wanted to go get 10,000 emails addresses off of this list, there's no recency. We can't say, give me 10,000 people who bought within 30 days, which is one thing I'm not a huge fan of. But for $750, we have 10,000 people. We can go plug that into Facebook. We literally can start targeting these people. We can do the same on YouTube and Google, because we can upload those lists there. Then we can make lookalikes off of it. We can try batching it, 5,000, 5,000, make lookalikes off of both. We can do a 1%, 2%, 3%, 4% on each. We literally could make 20 audiences or one giant audience, but there's ways to slice this and dice this, throw them through some sort of lead gen funnel, right? A free plus shipping funnel on the front end of this. I mean, how many people are going to go for something free? Then this is our way of filtering who are the buyers. Okay. Because there's no filter yet that says these people buy things. That's what we have to do over time, and which is where the second layer thought of owning the transaction and actually building this out in a way that we build this buyers list. Because once we have a buyers list of 1,000, 2,000, everything's going to work better on our ads, but then we can start to craft our second, third, fourth offers for that same group. And that is how we go from product to business, even in something that almost seems arbitrary and random. Dude, this just got a lot more exciting seeing that. And I think, I guarantee you we could look at, what was the tabloid I was just talking about?
Inquirer.
Let's do National Enquirer. Or what if I type in UFO?
So I'll tell you this. I think if you
UFO fanatics of the nation.
Yeah. See, that's perfect.
And then where do they come from? That pack. Okay. So they like to go to events. Yep.
Check out track records. Check out Illuminati. See if there's anything for that.
And I'm going to show a couple of others that are, okay, nothing there. So I want to show, let's just do astrology.
Yeah.
So let's say I was going down the world of crystals, of tarot, anything like that. Look at how many lists come up just for astrology. Okay. And okay, so tarot, astrology, there's not a perfect overlap. I know that. I'm just being really loose here. So we have astrology. I want to find, so astrology responders. I'm trying to find something where we know that they bought something.
Well, also, just so that you know, if you build one of these lists
so
as a business, you can be on the selling side of this transaction to people who want to advertise to these people eventually too. See if there's anything about crypto. Yeah.
On it, man. Because that was the other thought I had, was leveraging the affiliate marketing game on cryptocurrency. Right, like getting other people to promote it, because so many people have these lists, but even then it's a relationship game. It just went to astrology buyers, so let me go to
interesting, $600 per thousand esoteric and spiritual believers.
And that's a small list. They have to be buyers of some sort for that.
Yeah, that's a high
that's expensive.
Yeah.
Okay, so they must have like purchased a lot of these things or something.
Yeah.
Huh, interesting. Um,
Interesting.
and we're still waiting on the cryptocurrency to load. So yeah. Oh, there we go.
There you go.
Bitcoin and cryptocurrency investors. Right here is the top one, 100 per thousand. Email list. Yeah, dude, this is
Personal
millennial
investment
life
in Bitcoin. Go back. Look at personal investment, Bitcoin publication, and
and
product
product
buyers.
buyers. There you go. Good eye. Good eye. I was skipping that red arrow. So here's what I'm talking about on the recency, right? So 1 month recency here. This is an additive thing, right? So we're
That
adding all
adds to
these
your
numbers up. So we
CPM.
go to the base rate, and then we can do like, so it's 1 month hotline, but 1 month recency. That just means that these are people who have responded in a month. That means they're warmer, right? It's a hotter
Yeah.
lead. And then if I wanted to target the high income people, that's an additional $10 per thousand. So there's a way to take this 105 per thousand and jack it up to 150, 200 per thousand if I want to. um, Bitcoin product buyers. So this is pretty powerful possibility. And this is, like for everybody watching, like we're on a journey together at this point in time, right? Like we're at the beginning of a journey. This is like, Kevin, you've reframed my looking at the world, my business. Like I got oil wells everywhere, my man, like literally in different niches. I've got books that were public domain books sitting on Amazon that are generating sales on Amazon that are also making money on ClickBank affiliate offers that are embedded in the books. I got all these little things, and it's this idea that is supporting my lifestyle. And so for people watching, and I know that's your story too, right? That's how this
Yeah.
is this
That's
has
what's
come to be.
fun. That's what keeps it fun, right?
It
Is
is.
like to me, finding like the treasure hunt is what I want to run the treasure hunt, not the museum.
Yeah.
That's the part. I want to be Indiana Jones. I don't want to be the guy back in the administrator back at the college
Right.
that's running the
It's
thing.
funny that Indy was a professor, but like no, I think that's what it is. And there's so many, of the greedy gurus, and I like to talk a lot of smack about these folks, but they create this course, they make it sound like this is all there is, and this is the only way to do it, and it's just arduous content. And like what Kevin and I are engaged in here is we're building something from nothing. We're taking you along on the journey. We're going to help you build your version of it, and we're going to test these. And when this thing's firing, and we're like, okay, let's do another one. We're going to do another one, and I will once again throw the crypto into the ring. But I think right now, like everything says that this conspiracy theory is like this is going to be fun. Like I'm ready for more t-shirts already myself. Any last comments or ideas here at this point, Kevin?
Well, I would just say what we're doing now is just our process of sort of bantering and batting this back and forth, but um, the little things that we've done, like looking at Nextmark or any of those things, that's just validating. Okay, can we get this out of the ground easily? Like we're pretty sure there's oil because we have enough experience to be able to look at the land and see. But now we're trying to get to the next piece of it, and like the stuff that we were doing with the crypto, that was us assessing, okay, how it's going to be a little harder to get that out of the ground. That doesn't mean that it's not worth it, because the oil well might be bigger, right? There might be a lot more oil there. But ultimately, for the purposes of this demonstration, it doesn't make sense for us to embark on something that might take 6 months to actually be able to show you guys results.
Our
So
goal is to flex a little bit and to show like this can come together relatively quickly. I also think, Kevin, is worth noting that at this point in our careers and our lives, like this sounds fun. Like literally, this sounds kind of fun and goofy. And like if it ain't fun, I ain't doing it. I don't need the
yeah,
money anymore in my life. So the fact that we're showing up, so like it has that fun thing. And like the crypto would be like if I didn't have an actual core thing and I was a believer, like I could. I mean that could be a full time. That could be a big full-time thing. I just don't need that. I've already got that.
yeah.
I've already built that in my life. So I'm blessed in that sense. And so are you in that sense.
Yeah, and some guys, I mean, like the guy that's BitBoy Crypto, he was before he became BitBoy Crypto, which is a big YouTube channel and podcast and all this stuff, and he's got like he showed his portfolio. He's got over $10 million worth of coin that he's acquired. Before he was that, he was like an administrator at a nonprofit in Atlanta. I mean, he was probably not making $100,000 a year, and
Right.
just was a guy who believed in
Went all
crypto
in.
and went all in,
Yep.
and it's literally changed his life. So
100%. My audience on YouTube, I have so many people who've just like built mega businesses, 20, 50, $70,000 per month businesses. And they were working a call center. Like, shit, I was doing customer support, like answering phone calls, getting yelled at professionally, alt tab, working on my website. And the goal here is to show you guys the fast path. And the fast path is being very strategic. It's using a little bit of paid traffic. We don't want to dig our oil test holes by hand with a spoon. Okay. We want to maybe bring an excavator out, maybe throw a piece of dynamite under the ground and see if we can get some oil bubbling up from these kind of bursts. And then when we find it, now we know where to dig, right? We're going to dig some test holes first and survey the land. And that's what we're getting into next. I'm excited, Kevin. Final thoughts before we wrap this one up?
no, man, this is fun.
That's it. All right.
I'm excited about this. I think this is
Kick-ass.
going to be like really fun.
Well, good. I need some more hats, as obviously always need some more hats. And
I want a Sasquatch hat. I'm gonna have to get one of those.
Yeah, don't forget the mug.
I'm gonna get aliens. I'm gonna get it all. This is awesome.
All of it. I love it. Yeah, wifey, and this is another cool thing on my, wifey's all into some of this stuff too. So it'll be fun to banter around some ideas, and we're gonna keep recording these. So even when we're bantering on shirt ideas, design ideas, we're gonna bring you in because you can watch what we're talking about. It's gonna spin off ideas. It's gonna spin off like it's idea synthesis, right? You are having idea sex with what we're talking about, and then your life and your interest in the garden, boom, something pops up, and then you can bring it into the community. Please leverage the community. That's why they're. Please leverage the coaches. That's why they're there, and we will help you refine this. Ultimately, the ultimate refinement is put up an offer, run some traffic. Did they buy it? Yes or no? We are going to get to that point very quickly, and we are going to iterate. Did they buy that one? Yes, no. Did this one? Yes, no. This one? Yes, no. And the faster we can iterate through to find the one that consistently, right? Strike lightning once is level 1. Strike lightning every day, multiple times a day, every day. Aha. Now we're on to something. Now we can build systems and infrastructure to drive mega traffic, to maybe go hit it with an email. All those bigger things, they're all there. We are just going to be literally digging holes, throwing dynamite in, and let's see what we can get to bubble up.
Dude, I'm excited.
All right, man. See you on the next call, Kevin. And thank you for joining us.